بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. سهل لنا أمورنا واشرح لنا صدورنا ووفقنا لما تحبه وترضاه. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين وأنت أرحم الراحمين. So during this month, we have two evening classes, one on Tuesdays and another one on Thursdays. We just started the one on Tuesday on Quranic studies in Western academia, and this one is focusing on Hadith criticism, origin, and evolution. Nothing about Orientalism or Western academia. So just on Muslim perspectives during the history and speak about the origin and evolution. So we have four lectures that's on Thursdays, and this introductory lecture. During this, we will see what we are going to cover during these 4 weeks. So about the subject, so when that's from Al-Shafi'i, Muhammad bin Idris al-Shafi'i, mainly in his book Al-Risala, until the modern time. So why I start from Shafi'i? Because a lot of works cover the first and second Islamic century. So I'm going to focus on the hadith terminology and the question of authenticity in the Muslim history. That's why I start from al-Shafi'i in his Risala. And what here is not about the subject. So mainly what we are going to speak about during these 4 weeks. So mainly on hadith criticism and the question of authenticity, hadith terminology and epistemology. So, and for epistemology, this will be addressed when we speak about Mu'tazila approach. That will be maybe next week, inshallah. So we have some objectives. I hope we can get all of these in the end of these lectures. The first one, to know the main criteria followed by muhaddith scholars. So because always we speak, what's the main criterion is like muhaddith focus on matan or isnad and how we can approach hadith in the lens of muhaddith scholars. And then to map out the Islamic school in terms of hadith criticism. So this a very important objective, because mostly when we study hadith, we don't find other voices during the history. We see just one voice. And what does that one voice? Like from Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi till now, we see mostly Shafi'i scholars who wrote on hadith criticism. So what about other approaches and perspectives in the history of Islam? So I'll speak about this later, maybe more and in specific ways. Third, to know the evolution of hadith criticism and historical divided lines. And this is a very important objective, because mostly when we study hadith, we have some hints in some books that muhaddith referring to mutaqaddimin or mutaakhirin, and we need to know how we can divide the history of hadith and what does that mean, and how this can help us to understand the history of hadith and the hadith terminology. And then to know the important resources in major eras of hadith criticism evolution. So I'm going to cover the major resources in early era, then late, and then contemporary era. And also to know resources in each Islamic school. And here, Islamic school, I don't speak about just like Mazahib Fiqhiyya, I speak about in a broad meaning. So I include here Islamic law school, Fiqh, Mazahib Fiqhiyya, and also Mazahib Kalamiyya, especially Mu'tazila, and speak about their resources. And then to know the difference between Muhaddith and Usuli, in terms of Hadith criticism. So this also, we need to know when we see this divide between Muhaddith and Usuli. So many terms we address in Hadith, and meanwhile, Muhaddith scholars said these foreign subjects in Hadith, like Mutawatir and others. And the idea of Illah, the idea of Shuzuz, and all of these terms in Hadith. So I just want to say before to continue, if you have any question during the lecture, so here on site or on the webcast, any question welcome, because some questions connected to what we are covering right now. If you need to ask me to explain anything or to go over anything, please don't hesitate to ask me. And you have the mic, CD, right? Okay, so here I put here some references. I start with modern scholarly works and then back to traditional works. I start with my Sheikh Dr. Nuruddin Attar book called Manhaj al-Naqd. And in his Manhaj al-Naqd, also is he followed his Sheikh Muhammad al-Samahi, an Egyptian scholar, also his book Manhaj al-Naqd al-Hadithi. And we will talk about this later, what the significance of manhaj here, and why the emergence of this term in terms of hadith criticism, why there is a new shift in modern time from qawaid, from muṣṭalaḥ, from usul, from ulum, to the term of manhaj. And we need just like to understand and maybe raise questions. I don't have specific answers for this, but we witness the modern time witness these titles: Manhaj al-Naqd, Manhaj al-Naqd عند المحدثين, or al-Manhaj al-Muqtarah, and we will see that. The second, just to speak about Manhaj al-Naqd, nothing new in the book, just to reshape Ilm al-Hadith in different ways. So just like to put chapter based on narrator, chapter based on isnad, chapter based on matan, on tahammul and ada, all of these, and categorize all of these terms in one chapter. But the book is unique because the book, in its introduction, Dr. Attar wrote a very important introduction on the history of Ilm al-Muṣṭalaḥ. And we will talk about this later. The second book by Sheikh Mustafa al-Azami, his book also Manhaj al-Naqd, you will see Manhaj al-Naqd first and Manhaj al-Naqd second. So we will not see here Qawaid Ilm al-Hadith, Qawaid al-Muṣṭalaḥ. So the modern time started by Sheikh Tahir al-Jazairi and Sheikh Jamal al-Din al-Qasimi, but still the names of book, even though that all of these scholars, they have connected with academia and some maybe Western scholars, and especially Sheikh Tahir al-Jazairi, his book is very traditional. The name توجيه أهل النظر, right? توجيه النظر. And also the Jamal al-Din al-Qasimi, his book is قواعد التحديث. So, and Manhaj al-Naqd عند المحدثين by Mustafa al-Azami, divided by chapters to speak about new subjects in hadith, like to speak about the methodology of historians and the methodologies of muhaddith. And this is a new chapter in علوم الحديث, and also to speak about نقد المتن and the role of reason and just like how muhaddith use rational approach to criticize hadith. And the third book, or not the third book, a book and an article by Sheikh Hatim bin Arif al-Auni is from Saudi Arabia. He has a very important book called المنهج المقترح في علم المصطلح. المنهج المقترح في علم المصطلح. So in this book, we're raised about the history of hadith and the idea of متقدم and متأخر, and who is the people of istilah, the people of terminology. So he raised this question: who are the people of terminology? And if we study hadith criticism, to whom or on whom we should rely? And the second work by Hatim bin Arif al-Auni, بيان الحد الذي ينتهي عنده أهل الاصطلاح والنقد في علوم الحديث. So just to explain or to set up the dividing line between early and late periods in hadith criticism. And there is another book, maybe under the same purpose, by Sheikh Hamza al-Milyabari, his book علوم الحديث في ضوء تطبيقات المحدثين النقاد, also to speak about متقدم and متأخر and the history between these major eras. And I just want to mention some more that I wrote on this subject. Why? Because this is very connected to my area. So the first one, منهج قبول الأخبار, this will be published, and I talk about this in our classes on أصول الجصاص. And so I just received the cover from the publisher 1 week ago, منهج قبول الأخبار, and I was honored by Dr. Etter introduction to this book with 10 pages and speak about the importance of this kitab. And منهج قبول الأخبار is a book. Why also منهج? Do you see منهج? But here not منهج النقد, منهج قبول الأخبار. So, and the title is, we need to think about the title: منهج النقد, منهج قبول الأخبار, منهج النقد عند المحدثين, المنهج المقترح. So منهج قبول الأخبار, قبول because is a term used by muhaddith and usuli. Different from the idea of sahih or the idea of naqd. So qabul is used between muhaddith, among muhaddith and usuli. That's why in this book I cover six Islamic schools: Mu'tazila, Hanafi, Shafi'i, Hanbali, Maliki, and Zahiri. And in terms of hadith criticism, and the book is 2 volumes, 900 pages. Is took years just writing on these subjects. And the second book, نشأة علم المصطلح والحد الفاصل بين المتقدمين والمتأخرين, is just an introductory on the history of علم الحديث. And in this book, I was interested in to speak about this dividing line between early and late, and just like to present theories presented by ulama on the history of hadith, and I give another suggestion as we will see. And also there is an article published in Saudi Arabia, الدرس الحديثي في بلاد الشام. So الدرس الحديثي في بلاد الشام is to speak about the 2 major Islamic movements in our modern time, مذهبية and لا مذهبية, or أهل التقليد واللا مذهبية. and the significance of Bilad al-Sham, especially the significance of Bilad al-Sham, Sheikh Nasir al-Din al-Albani and Sheikh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudde, and two major schools, and politics and criterion followed by these ulama. So here, references from mostly I start in chronological order, first by Shafi'i, al-Risala. So al-Risala al-Shafi'i considered as the book on usul al-fiqh. But for me, if you read al-Shafi'i in the eyes of khasm, adversary, is khasm to speak about the idea of hadith criticism. So we can see the main purpose of the book is to speak about hadith. And second, on bayan. Yes. That's a good question. So, and also this used as nuqad. So nuqad and muhaddithin used and also manhaj used. But the idea is the emergence of both. So I didn't give any attention to naqd. I mostly give attention to manhaj. That's good. So I didn't dig into the word of naqd and the evolution and the origin of this word. Thank you for this question. So the second book مقدمة صحيح Muslim. So nothing like the title مقدمة. We don't have this title. We have الصحيح, and his صحيح Imam Muslim writes his مقدمة and present his شروط. And then Abu Dawood رسالة إلى أهل مكة also presented his شروط. الترمذي العلل and the commentary on Tirmidhi al-Ilal. This is a very important book to understand the idea of Madar al-Isnad. So the idea of Madar al-Isnad is there are a lot of scholars in modern time interested in the idea of Madar al-Isnad. Madar al-Isnad mostly in the second Islamic century. We will see a lot of hadith started with Sahabi, Tabi, and then when we reach Tabi at Tabi'i, we see a Madar al-Isnad. From there, we see the branches. So mostly in the second Islamic century. And then Ibn Uday al-Kamil fi al-Du'afa. So that's 9 volumes. And I recommend any student of hadith to read this book from the first page to the last page, and to read maybe twice and 3 times. This is a very important book to see. So because when we study hadith terminology, Muṣṭalaḥ al-Hadith, we cannot understand the context. This book for the context of hadith terminology. For jarh and ta'dil, and for tasheeh wa tahsin, and all of these terms, and how muhaddith scholars in the first 3 Islamic centuries used all of these terms. And then al-Balkhi, قبول الأخبار ومعرفة الرجال. This published in 2 volumes, is a Mu'tazili work by al-Balkhi. Al-Balkhi is a student of Ibn al-Khayyat in his book Al-Intisar. And al-Balkhi came as a book to give credition, or I'm sorry, to give a credit to Khabar al-Wahid, because Shaykhuh al-Khayyat, the Shaykh, criticized Khabar al-Wahid and deny Khabar al-Wahid. And then al-Balkhi came and wrote this book just to say, yes, we are not the people who criticize and deny Khabar al-Wahid. And he wrote this book with asanid. This is the first time for Mu'tazila to write on hadith with asanid. حدثنا حدثنا حدثنا, and in the end you will see to criticize hadith. So that's why for some editors I spoke about that. When read al-Balkhi حدثنا حدثنا, and then something against Ahlul Sunnah and against Hadith, against the people of Hadith. What's happening here? And just like is a tactic or a strategy by al-Balkhi to work from inside and then to deny Khabar al-Wahid. In the end, when you read the whole book, you'll see that Khabar al-Wahid denied by Mu'tazila. Is not like he is not between Ahlul Sunnah and al-Mu'tazila. And Qabul al-Akhbar edited two. The first one is very old. It's very bad edition, and then edited by a Turkish scholar called Hussein Khanso. And I think because Hussein Khanso is working and specialized on Mu'tazila, so I recommend this book based on his specialization. I don't have this book yet. And then Al-Jassas, Al-Fusul fil Usul. This to see how Hanafi scholars approach Hadith criticism. So the first, Al-Balkhi for Mu'tazila, and we are going to speak specifically about all of these books on Mu'tazila and on Hanafi and the origin and evolution of all of these books. And then Al-Naysaburi, Al-Ma'rifa, and Al-Madkhal. Al-Ma'rifa, the first book I consider on Hadith terminology in the history of Islam. So when we speak about Hadith terminology as a genre, so Al-Ma'rifa. And Al-Madkhal is just to explain his work on Sahih al-Bukhari and Muslim. And this like introductory book for his Al-Mustadrak. Where he mentioned 10 levels of hadith, 5 sahih and 5 sahih muttafaq alayhi and 5 mukhtalaf fihi. And all Khatib's, Al-Baghdadi's works, all. We don't exclude any book, specifically Tarikh Baghdad. Tarikh Baghdad is a book for hadith terminology, is not about history. So in this book, with Al-Kamil fi al-Du'afa, is to understand the context of Hadith terminology. And Ibn al-Salah, Al-Muqaddimah, was just about lectures presented in Dar al-Hadith al-Ashrafiyya and then compiled in his Muqaddimah. And then Ibn Daqiq al-Eid, Al-Iqtirah. Why I picked here some books? Because these we can see a shift in Hadith terminology and Hadith criticism. For Ibn Daqiq al-Eid, the first book who makes us aware about the dividing between Usuli and Muhaddith. And then Ibn Hajar, Nuzhatun Nazar, Sharh Nukhbat al-Fikr. And the last one, As-Suyuti, Tadrib al-Rawi. I mentioned in our Tuesday class, As-Suyuti, when you buy As-Suyuti, any book As-Suyuti, you buy the history of ilm and the content of ilm. So in Tadrib al-Rawi, in his introduction, we will see the history of ilm and the evolution and origins. And you can see, but in Tadrib, not like as in Itqan, he combined a lot of opinions, but he was restricted with Hadith terminology and Hadith criticism. He doesn't speak about balagha and all of these stuff as we can see in Itqan. And I recommend this edition by Tadrib al-Rawi. There are a lot of editions for Tadrib al-Rawi, and then this by Sheikh Muhammad Awama. I think most of you know him, is a Syrian scholar, and right now live in Istanbul. So so just to pause, is there any question before continue from people here? تفضل سيدي. So as we see in our class that we have around half of volume on Akhbar and Sunnah, and mostly same in Usul al-Sarkhasi and others. So I think is I consider the book as a detailed book on Sunnah. But yes, you cannot ignore like late works by al-Bazdawi and all of these works. But as early, to compare between al-Balkhi and al-Jassas in that time, especially in the 4th Islamic century, that's why al-Jassas. But if you speak about detail, you can go to al-Bazdawi, Kashf al-Asrar, and these books. Uday. Yeah. Did I say Adi? Yeah. Al-Kamil fi al-Du'afa. This is what I found on the, I did not check the name, but that's what on the volumes of the all of these 9 volumes, Ibn Uday. So you are you sure about Ibn Adi? Do you have it here in the Dar al-Qasim? You don't. If you have it, can you check? Yeah, what I know is Ibn Uday. So sometimes I use Ibn Adi, sometimes Ibn Uday, but then I found that to follow. So forgive my ignorance if I don't check that. Okay, for Ibn Hajar, Nuzhat al-Nadhar, he said the first book written on hadith criticism, Ilm al-Muṣṭalaḥ, consider al-Muhaddith al-Fasil بين الراوي والواعي. And he said, but al-Muhaddith al-Fasil doesn't compass or comprehend. لكنه لم يستوعب. In reality, the book Al-Muhaddith Al-Fasil is not about hadith terminology. It's about just like to speak about some dividing line between faqih and muhaddith. It's not about hadith terminology or hadith criticism. Why I say that? Because after Al-Muhaddith Al-Fasil, we don't see like Ibn Salah or Al-Khatib Al-Baghdadi or Ibn Hajar cited Al-Muhaddith Al-Fasil in their books on hadith criticism. Yeah, Al-Khatib Al-Baghdadi cited Muhaddith Al-Fasil a lot in Al-Jami' li Akhlaq Al-Rawi wa Adab Al-Sami', but not in Al-Kifaya. But Al-Ramahrumuzi cited a lot in the, like when they speak about sin al-tahammul, the age when a student listen or hear hadith, and then the age when he deliver or narrate hadith. Lectures, questions. We have a lot of questions, and I think you have more. We will see. So some, just like I put some questions, and I hope we discuss and answer these questions. The first one, as a student or prospective student of hadith, from where I should start. There are here some ulama. This question, maybe it's they know already where they start, but this is a very important question. A lot of students, they don't know where they start and what the book they start, and because the library of hadith criticism, jarh and ta'dil, rijal, is a very big library. And why the subject is important, why I need to be specialized in ilm al-hadith, and how the subject connected to our modern time. So if I'm specialized in ilm al-hadith, why I need that in this modern time? Why I not like be mutakallim or usuli or others? This many people ask this question, and maybe Sidi Bilal here received these questions as someone working on hadith, and here some people working on hadith criticism, ilm al-mustalah. So a lot of questions why I need to focus on hadith, and why, especially in our modern time, if you speak about right now amma. So if you like to ask anyone ammi, who are the like main scholars, famous scholars in our modern time, if you go to maybe Google, and mostly they know a lot about Nasir al-Din al-Albani. So the idea of hadith is very important. And then to speak about the Hadith terminology and Hadith criticism and Hadith mostly in a crisis time is a very important. So when we have a crisis time in Muslim history, so Muslims going to the text. That's the easy way, like to say قال Allah and قال Rasul. They don't want complicated ways to find hukum and answers for their questions. That's why, for me, Salafism raised specifically in crisis time. So that's in 8th Islamic century, and right now, and just like follow this, just like I don't have any study about this, but just like from my background in Syria, and because Syria before the war, you can see mostly the land of tasawwuf, and then suddenly everything like Salafism and all of these emerge. Why? Because it's the easy answer, because people mostly find going to the text without this complicated and tradition and taqlid is a very easy way. This maybe the simple answer, and there are other answers like maybe geographical, economic, and political, other answers I am not specialized in. Is the focus of Hadith criticism on Matan or Isnad? So we'll see in modern time, a lot of people know the Hadith scholars focus on Naqd al-Matan, and they did that as just like a defense for Hadith scholars in the history. Is that the main? Is that a focus by Muhaddith scholars or not? And then, if not, why? And if yes, why? What's the main criterion followed by Muhaddith? And this connected to the second question. And why Hadith criticism or principles, qawaid, accused as vague and unorganized? Anyone read Hadith and then Muṣṭalaḥ Hadith, and then like when he read Fard, Gharib, Ziyada, Ta'arud, and then what's the idea of Fard? What's the idea of Gharib? Gharib Nisbi, Gharib Mutlaq, Fard Nisbi, Fard Mutlaq, and all of these. Mutaba'a, Shahid, we have different definitions for Mutaba'a and Shahid. زيادة الثقة عند أهل الحديث, زيادة الثقة عند الأصوليين, and then what the how we can organize all of these. And this made I think German scholar, I think he's from Germany, Jon Boll, wrote a lot of works and accused hadith terminology as vague and organized. And there is a book will be published soon, inshallah, by Oxford Press, called Oxford Hadith Handbook, around maybe 800 pages with 35 researchers. I wrote a critique and respond to Jon Boll, and the article, the systematization of Hadith criticism from Shafi'i till our modern time, and to speak about how we can understand Hadith and how we can organize Hadith. And why some approaches applied by madhahib in the Muslim history disappeared. Why we don't see Hanafi methodology in like Nuzhat al-Nazar or Muqaddimat ibn Salah or Mu'tazili? Why we don't see all of these after Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi? Why all of these disappeared? And why Orientalists focus on Hadith? So we'll see from 19th century till now, they focus on Hadith. And why we ask this question? Because I said we are going to focus on Hadith criticism in Muslim, because we will speak about modern time, and speak about academia in Arab world, and speak about the emergence of manhaj, and speak about the Hadith criticism, the Matan criticism. All of these emerged in our modern time. And this based on the connection with Western scholars. What is the connection between Hadith criticism and Salafism? Why we see this the interest, a very big interest among Salafi, and called Al-Athariyin or Ahl al-Athar or Al-Athari. A lot of books edited by Salafi on Hadith, Tabaqat, Rijal, and Hadith criticism. What's the significance of Shaykh Nasir al-Din al-Albani? and what is his methodology? And is his methodology different from traditionalist in the end? So when we see like any takhrij, is his different from like Sheikh Nuruddin Atur and others? Or the problem is not about hadith criticism and takhrij or something else? So we need to know, is there a new methodology by Sheikh Nasiruddin Albani or something else? This is a big question. And I cannot promise I have an answer for this, but just like make it for some people here, if they are interested to do a research on this and write on this. Why the modern time witness the phenomena of Quraniyun? The people just like rely on Quran and deny Hadith. And we speak about that in Jassas class. So we don't have among Muslims in the history of Islam, early history, late history, and modern time, we don't find any sect, any community who reject akhbar. But we have some who reject hadith or mutawatir outside Quran. And then a new Mu'tazila, when we speak about our modern time. So when you go to Arab world, you will see a lot of thinkers right now. You can consider them a new Mu'tazila. And what's the idea of a new Mu'tazila? Is this just like a Kalami approach, or like speak here about Mu'tazila as an ideology, or just like an idea? And what else? This floor open for you if you have any questions. This not to ask me right now, but if you have some expectations and question, because I'm still working on these lectures. If you have any question, maybe I can include it in our coming lectures. Are these Jami'a Mani'a?
There's some discussion on whether Shafi'i was the first really with his manhaj, and some people say that it might have come from Muhammad ibn Hassan or Isa ibn Abban instead, like this whole paradigm shift to very hadith centric, etc. So maybe it's not directly related.
So to speak about Isa ibn Abban approach, right? Yeah, and okay. So maybe this I'll address this when I speak about Isa bin Abban specifically, but not about the influence of Shaybani on Shafi'i. But I'll speak because, yeah, I will see how we can include that. Thank you, Hassan. That's good. Can I have a pencil? You mean in universities and? Is there any specific region or? Okay. So that's a big question. No.
Question from Mohsen Ali. He says, I would be interested in hearing your thoughts about the separation between Hadith and Seerah as disciplines, and whether Seerah writing has become more attuned to Hadith in modern times.
Seems we have additional lectures on Hadith criticism, Sheikh Amin. Okay. What else? Okay, so when we study Hadith criticism and different, so what the disciplines that we should bring to, like anyone study Hadith criticism or a student of Hadith, Ilm al-Muṣṭalaḥ. So there are some disciplines they need to be aware. The first one, Hadith terminology, Muṣṭalaḥ, and language. So because when we speak about terminology, Muṣṭalaḥ, when you use al-istilah or mustalah, what does that mean, and how mustalah is different from word. And there is a concept like in Arabic mafhum and mustalah as a term and mufrada as a word. So what's the difference between all of these? Mafhum, mustalah, and mufrada. So when you speak about mustalah, does that mean we have a fixed meaning of this word? So when you say mu'dal, so is there a fixed meaning among all scholars about mu'dal? Mutawatir same, ahad same, hasan, all of these terms are all of these fixed and finished, and we have one meaning for all of these terms. And then we need a discipline of fiqh and usul, Islamic schools, because when we study hadith terminology and we go to any book, like in fiqh, in Hanafi books, and we'll see a lot of hadith and not based on قواعد الاصطلاح أو قواعد المحدثين. So how we can understand all of these hadith in كتب الفقه and also كتب التصوف like الإحياء and كتب أهل العرفان. And also we need to know about Mu'tazila, because as I said, Mu'tazila in the early period, the group who initiated the many questions about the epistemology and hadith and how we accept reports. So Mu'tazila is very important, and I don't see like to include Mu'tazila in all of these. I speak here about specialized people, that I don't speak about like in everywhere. When you speak, when we study hadith, we don't need to bring this. But for specialized people, they want to be aware. They need to be aware about Mu'tazila in early resources and the shift from Mu'tazila to the idea of Adala and Ahl al-Hadith. And then to know about history, and this included by Sheikh Mustafa Al-Azami, the chapter in his book, and we'll see right now some scholarly works in our modern time to compare between hadith criticism and historian criticism, or how historian approach akhbar. And also epistemology. Epistemology is a very big word. A lot of things coming to mind when we say epistemology, but mostly when we speak about epistemology here, we speak about what the criterion we should bring when we hear news. And this mostly we can see in usul al-fiqh, a lot of issues raised about epistemology. The type of knowledge that produced based on akhbar is yaqeen, علم ضروري, علم نظري, علم طمأنينة, غالب الظن, ظن, شك, وهم, all of these connected to the idea of epistemology. And also to maybe, because when we speak about hadith, we speak about the history of ideas in the first Islamic centuries. There are a lot of ideas that time. We can see where and when the concept of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah like started. Ahl Sunnah, Al Jama'ah, and Ahl Sawad. All of these connected with these books. And then in the end, Jarh wa Ta'dil. And here, some people approach this in our modern time through sociology and psychology, like to understand the context and the levels and the societies in Baghdad, communities, and how we can understand all of these. So because there are very subtle and very light words in Jarh wa Ta'dil, and that I mentioned in some our classes here, like when someone say, what do you think about Bahr al-Saqqa? And he said, huwa kasmihi, full stop. Huwa kasmihi. What does that mean? And just like not to say nothing. Huwa Bahr wa Saqqa. And if we combine Bahr and Saqqa, what's coming out? So like sea and watering. So sea cannot like water and cannot give because salt. That doesn't mean like he is liar or he is nothing. Bahr al-Saqqa. So then all of these terms, like how they used and the language is maybe subtle or strong, light. We need to understand all of these. And so there are some perspectives and methodologies on when we study hadith, like hadith criticism bring to us many schools in the history of Islam. The first one, the main methodology and Shafi'i school, and that's what's mentioned later by, I don't know who the scholar mentions that, أسعد الناس بالحديث هم الشافعية. That means everything about hadith terminology written by Shafi'i. You don't see Hanafi or others. And then Ahlul Hadith and Ahlul Ra'i, this very general terms, and Mu'tazila, Hanafi, Ahlul Kashf, they have their approach to hadith, even though we don't have like some books on their methodology because it's very famous. There's no criteria, just like Ahlul Kashf. أنبأني قلبي أو إنباه, as Shaykh al-Akbar said, إنباه, and then mention hadith. That's what I found, and Sidi Sheikh Amin knows more than me about how Shaykh al-Akbar used the isnad. I found إنباه a lot in al-Futuhat. And الظاهرية, المذهب الظاهري, and their approach on hadith criticism. And then in our modern time, مذهبية and لا مذهبية. لا مذهبية, the idea of لا, إضافة لا, يعني adding لا, this from our modern Arabic language. So we can say غير المذهبية, or and then to add ال to لا, and then اللا مذهبية. This is Arabic. Can we see that in our classical Arabic? No, we don't add al to la, and also we don't add it to al ghayr as so al ghayr as sifa, not as a noun. So, but this our modern time. We find it by Sheikh al-Buti book al-La Madhhabiyya Qantara ila al-La Diniyya. This used now with Arab. So feel free if you want to use la and then to use Allah, and then the suffix here iya. So a lot of terms you can use it with this iya, and then put Allah, al-hurriya, Allah hurriya, al-demokratiya, Allah demokratiya, and then salafiyya, Allah salafiyya, and then all of this, so on. So when we speak about madhabiyya and la madhabiyya, we speak about Salafi, we speak about Sufi, we speak about traditionalist, New Mu'tazila, and Quraniyun in our modern time. So what I'm going to focus during these lectures, preliminary points. I hope I can go over some in this lecture, some, not all. And then Mu'tazila and Hanafi criterion, Muhaddith criterion, authenticity question and terminology, the origin and evolution, Hadith criticism in modern time, Salafi versus traditionalist, the content matin criticism question. So to start with introductory points, I have 5 points to speak before going to speak about Mu'tazili and Muhaddith. The first one, divided line between early and late Hadith scholars and the importance of dividing 4 theories. The term riwaya and diraya, origin and evolution, Muhaddith and faqih nature, Qabul versus Rad, Sahih versus Da'if, the term Tark, the term Tawaqquf, 2, 3, or 5 levels of Hadith. So first one, divided lines. So there are 3 theories written by Sheikh Nuruddin Atar and Mustafa al-Azami and al-Auni. So they, in their introductions, in their books, divided the history of Hadith into adwar. Adwars means stages. So, and they, like for Sheikh Atar, put 7 stages from the Prophet till our modern time. And Al-Awni also 7 stages. Al-Azami 3 stages. And this mostly based on the idea of Jarh or Ta'dil for Al-Awni, the idea of Jarh and Ta'dil and Riwaya, Jarh and Ta'dil and Riwaya, so based on Hadith. But for Sheikh Atar, based on Hadith terminology, on Istilah, the Ta'lif fil Istilah. So how we can see the first century in terms of Hadith criticism, not on Riwaya and narration. So then, when you speak about Hadith criticism and the stages of in the history of Islam, so we can rely on Dr. Atar in 7 stages. And Al-Azami mostly, I don't find the reason behind like 3 stages, because he said the first one, Dawr al-Sahaba, companions, and then the second one starts from Tabi'een and ends in the middle of 4th Islamic century. And then from 4th Islamic century till our modern time. That's very, it's, for me, I cannot accept that as one period from Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi till now, right? And same for Al-Awni, he considered the last stage is from the 5th Islamic century till now. So in terms of riwayah, also that's, we cannot consider about ijazat and riwayah, so we have some shifts in this, because in our modern time different from that time. So for me, that's the 4th theory. I divide the history of hadith to 3 main periods. The first one, mutaqaddimin, this not from our perspective, from hadith perspective, how they as muhaddith scholars see themselves. So they said about mutaqaddim, and they mentioned mutaakhir, and then I added mu'asir. And we speak about mutaqaddim, mutaakhir, and mu'asir. This is a very easy way to find how this like different, because yes, when you speak about mutaqaddim, we use this a lot. Like when the mutaqaddimin, this hadith is this muṣṭalaḥ means this and that, and also for jarh and ta'dil, and for riwayat and everything. And then everything in mutaakhir based on kutub, on riwayat, wijada, and ijazat, and also for jarh and ta'dil, and also for the writing on qawaid al-muṣṭalaḥ. And in contemporary time is different. Why? Because as I said, there 3 phenomena emerged. The first one, naqd al-matan, hadith matan criticism, the idea of manhaj and manhaj al-naqd. And the third one is to speak about, I'm sorry, to teach hadith in academia. This is like different. So now in academia, we don't see nuzhat al-nazar. We see some books and tests, quizzes, and different ways, different process. And so when you speak about mutaqaddim and mutaakhir, the first citation, we can see like we have 2 camps in the 4th Islamic century. Here we can see the dividing line between mutaqaddim and mutaakhir. So Al-Khattabi says here, وَرَأَيْتُ أَهْلَ الْعِلْمِ, in his introduction to commentary on Abi Dawud Sunan. وَرَأَيْتُ أَهْلَ الْعِلْمِ فِي زَمَانِنَا قَدْ حَصَلُوا حِزْبَيْنِ وَانْقَسَمُوا إِلَى فِرْقَتَيْنِ أَصْحَابُ حَدِيثٍ وَأَثَرٍ وَأَهْلُ فِقْهٍ وَنَظَرٍ. Is in 2 camps, and that's to speak about the history of idea and when all of these start, like groups and schools. And this, I'm sorry, I should put Al-Khattabi after Ibn Hibban based on the wafat time. So Ibn Hibban also said, وَلَمْ يَكُنْ هَذَا الْعِلْمُ فِي زَمَانٍ قَطْ تَعَلُّمُهُ أَوْجَبَ مِنْهُ فِي زَمَانِنَا هَذَا. علم الحديث. So علم الحديث is a duty in our time. لذهاب من كان يحسن هذا. They passed away. All of these scholars passed away. وقلة اشتغال طلبة العلم به. لأنهم اشتغلوا في العلم في زماننا هذا وصاروا حزبين. So another citation about 2 camps, حزبين. فمنهم, so here we don't see أهل الرأي and أهل الحديث. So the first one, حديث وأثر and فقه ونظر. Not أهل الرأي and أهل الحديث. So أهل الرأي al-Hadith mostly in the before that, but here we see a different terms. وصاروا حزبين فمنهم طلبة الأخبار الذين يرحلون فيها إلى الأمصار, just like people who merely looking for reports, إجازات, أسانيد, and nothing about the content. وأكثر همتهم الكتابة والجمع دون الحفظ والعلم به وتمييز الصحيح من السقيم. إذن they don't concern about verifying صحيح and سقيم. والحزب الآخر المتفقهة الذين جعلوا جل اشتغالهم بحفظ الآراء والجدل وأغضوا عن حفظ السنن ومعانيها. إذن they concern about jadal and opinions and arguments, but not about sunnah. So here we have a very unique, it's not about just ra'i and athar. It's just about mutafaqqiha, about san'a. This like word is very important, about san'a. The emergence of san'a as muhaddis and as faqih. So I'm muhaddis and you are faqih, and this is my specialization, this is your specialization. And then for riwayah and diraya, I mentioned here three, maybe I'll summarize this very quickly on riwayah and diraya. I mentioned this, and maybe I'll give you the old slides here and to find all of these definitions. So three definitions on riwayah, the first one and the third one. The first one by Ibn al-Akfani and by Dr. Utter, same, is about just like the ilm concern about narrations and to fix lafz and dabt. But the second definition is ilm al-riwayah exceed the idea of narration, is to verify sahih and saqim. Is ilm al-riwayah here as ilm al-Muṣṭalaḥ in Haji Khalifa. So in الدراية عز الدين بن جماعة define علم الدراية علم بقوانين يعرف بها أحوال السند والمتن. He is not about narration, about the principles that make us know who is the situations, cases, and status of sanad and matan. Ibn Hajar same معرفة القواعد المعرفة بحال الراوي والمروي, that same mostly about sanad and matan. And then Tash Kubrazada in his Miftah al-Sa'ada and late scholars go with this definition to the early meaning. Diraya, as derived from dara. العلم الباحث عن المعنى is not about techniques way to verify صحيح and حسن and ضعيف. إذن العلم الباحث عن المعنى المفهوم من ألفاظ الحديث وعن المراد منها مبنيا على قواعد العربية وضوابط الشرعية. Nothing about hadith criticism. It's about interpretation. It's about fiqh. And then, so what's the end? So what's riwayah and diraya? So Dr. Utter, after mentioned a lot of these definitions, he said ilm al-riwayah in terms of to compare ilm al-riwayah and diraya just as the relationship between nahu and i'rab. So i'rab is ilm al-riwayah, is to go and to focus on some riwayah and to know this sahih and da'if. But ilm al-diraya is the principles, major principles, like fiqh and usul and nahu and i'rab. And that's fair based on definitions. So should we stop or for questions? So when we should end? 8:30. So I'll stop maybe at 8:20 and then for questions. Is that good? Okay. So we witnessed a lot of names for ilm al-hadith. The first one, ilm usul al-hadith. It's like usul al-fiqh and usul al-hadith. And the second one, ilm al-hadith, not usul here. And just I recall a joke by someone who's from Jordanian, specialized in ilm al-hadith, and he is teaching at Arabic language school. And when he met with a Western scholar, he said, "Wow, you are specialized in the conversation knowledge and the conversation discipline, ilm al-hadith." So ilm al-hadith is a very like wide here. It's sometimes like, what does that ilm al-hadith? And especially when you mention this like outside the like people. So علم الحديث is a very short to mean also أصول الحديث. علم المصطلح الحديث, and then علوم الحديث as علوم القرآن. So علم أصول الحديث as أصول الفقه, علوم الحديث as علوم القرآن. مصطلح أهل الأثر is we witness with Sheikh Tahir al-Jazairi, like use مصطلح أهل الأثر. And then علم دراية الحديث, علم دراية الحديث, and you will see not علم رواية الحديث, علم دراية الحديث to say about to mean علم أصول الحديث. So what's the name used in early period? علم أصول الحديث mostly, and late مصطلح الحديث, and contemporary we can see منهج النقد. We don't see like some people like writing on علم المصطلح or علم أصول الحديث, they use منهج النقد and نقد الحديث. That doesn't mean we can see some like still on علم الحديث. But the idea of منهج النقد and منهج here is like to present hadith as principles and holistic principles to study hadith. It's not like scattered terms here and there. So muhaddith versus faqih in the first Islamic centuries. So the first book and the main book to understand the nature of muhaddith and faqih in the first 4th Islamic century is الرامة هرمزي المحدث الفاصل بين الراوي والواعي. So in this book, الرامة هرمزي mentioned an incident about ثور الفقيه. And there is a group in Baghdad, just like narrating hadith, and a woman came to them and asked them about hukum in istihada. And all of them said, we don't know. And meanwhile, they see Thawr Faqih coming and pointed out to Thawr and asked him. So the woman went to Thawr and asked him, and he said, حدثنا قال رسول الله that. And all of them, they said, we know that, but we don't have isnad. I'm sorry, their fuqaha, not muhaddithin, we don't have isnad. So what's the idea of isnad here, and how we can approach that? So why they didn't answer, even though they don't know the hukum? So because they don't have isnad, this al-muhaddith al-Rama Hurmuzi said, because they don't have isnad, they didn't say anything. That I cannot generalize here, but based on a lot of incidents, maybe we can put this قاعدة. Every faqih every faqih is muhaddis, but not every muhaddis is faqih in the first Islamic century. But that doesn't mean like here like al-ghalib, the majority. And here also a citation by Imam Ahmed. قال الإمام أحمد لما سأله محمد بن يزيد المستملي عن المحدث عبد الرزاق بن همام الصنعاني قال أكان له فقه؟ فقال الإمام أحمد ما أقل الفقه وما أقل الفقه في أصحاب الحديث. إذن أصحاب الحديث two camps, but in the end, like in 4th Islamic century, we can see like the two camps as Sana'a. But in the first three Islamic centuries, it's not Sana'a just about when we speak about fiqh, you need isnad. And that's why we can find like masanid with a'imma, Musnad al-Imam Abi Hanifa, Shafi'i, and Muwatta Malik, and others. So hadith and usul terms. So as I said, qabul and rad used by usuliyin more than muhaddithin. And this a term used by Ibn Hajar when he said al-khabar al-maqbul wal-khabar ghayr al-maqbul. And he speak about ma'mulun wa ghayr ma'mul bihi. Is the idea about amal, is not about sahih. So when we speak about qabul, we speak about ma'mul, al-amalu alayhi. And then sahih versus da'if, that's in among muhaddithin. And tark used by muhaddith and faqih, but mostly by faqih, tark al-hadith. And tawaqquf also used by among muhaddith and faqih. And we can see this not school, but a shift in tawaqquf. We called al-waqifiyya. So we see that among usuli books, like after 3 opinions and 4 opinions, and قال بعضهم بالتوقف التوقف. So the tawaqquf is an opinion or not. So, but mostly a tawaqquf in used in among muhaddith scholars. So the last slide, ranks of hadith, and I'm going to explain this more in future. We can see in the before Tirmidhi just binary categorizations, like 2, hadith sahih and da'if. And then after Tirmidhi we can see 3, sahih, hasan, da'if. That doesn't mean like before Tirmidhi, hasan not used by al-Bukhari and Yaqub bin Abi Shayba, but as a term with a definition. And then with Ibn Hajar, we see 5 levels. صحيح لذاته, صحيح لغيره, حسن لذاته, حسن لغيره, and ضعيف. This is very important to understand why some people like said is hadith is criticism unorganized and vague. This is very important to understand the history of hadith. Sahih and Hasan, Sahih and Da'if, and then Sahih, Hasan, Da'if, and then the 5 levels of hadith. Alhamdulillah. So, time for questions. تفضل سيدي. So based on definitions or based on the Dr. Aitor's opinion or my opinion, or what exactly? So because here we can see different definitions. So if we take like Ibn al-Akfani, that use علم يشتمل على أقوال النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام وأفعاله وروايتها وضبطها وتحرير ألفاظها. So here, so in this ilm we don't see like to speak about hadith terminology and to speak about mu'adal, aziz, and all of these. It's just like a care about how to narrate, the ways of narrations, and how to fix the text, how to like ضبط اللفظ. So here, so we can see this mostly like among like in manuscripts, and when you narrate hadith from any shaykh, how you like the idea of ضبط and mu'arada, comparing the text and then delivering the text, and this riwayah. But diraya, so this like can be any student do that, like go to any sheikh and listen to his sheikh, and then comparing the text with the sheikh, and that's what we found like in Marwiyat al-Bukhari and Ibn Hajar, like Fath al-Bari. A very good part from Fath al-Bari is just like to focus on ilm al-riwayah in Marwiyat Karima, in Marwiyat al-Asili وغير ذلك, and to fix all of these texts. So but ilm al-diraya is to go beyond that and to give your opinion on hadith. Is this hadith sahih or hadith da'if or hasan, maqbul or غير maqbul? This in the end. So that's why Sheikh Atar, he said like an-nahu is like to practice riwayah. You can practice riwayah, but in the end, like after narrating a lot and reading a lot, can you have a knowledge of sahih and hasan and da'if? So like consider like someone read al-kutub al-sitta, nothing like from Ibn Muṣṭalaḥ or Ibn Hajar, or like just like reading all of these books. So can this student in the end know the criterion and how to like, is this hadith sahih and hasan and da'if? So this is the idea of riwayah. Okay, and he cannot do that, and he cannot use all of these terminology. He needs like a language, terms language. And this is what I understood from like all of these definitions and from Dr. Atar. So he can practice, he can understand this marfu', mansub, and majroor. He understands this like sahih and hasan and da'if. But then he cannot issue an opinion on Sahih and Hasan and Da'if. So, but Ilm al-Diraya, to read all of these books and read Hadith terminology, like Tadrib al-Rawi and Nuzha and all of these books, like Al-Kamil and early resources, and then to give an opinion on some hadith and to say that hadith sahih, da'if, and hasan. Wallahu a'lam. Yeah. And maybe without knowing the theoretical knowledge, just like reading without, like if you ask him about what's the meaning of model or what the meaning of that without reading all of these, so maybe he give a definition based on his reading, not based on what we have on in كتب المصطلح. نعم تفضل. Yeah, because the idea of the question of authenticity is the concern for them, because Mu'tazila presented a group that denies Sunnah, and this fits with their approach on, as I said, in Quranic studies on the Ur text, and what we have in Muslim hands right now, yes, it's like fake text. So how to approach that is to focus on two things. The first one is to deny Sunnah based on Mu'tazila and bring all of these reports from all of these books. That's Muhaddis, is just like people with crazy minds and all of this stuff. And then for Quran is to focus on the Ur text. What we have in Mus'haf, that's just something like fabricated in the end. So from the Ur text and the question of authenticity, both of these, I think, can combine to, and Mu'tazila here is very important. If you read like a book by Mu'tazila, you will see why. Like Fadl al-I'tizal, if you read Fadl al-I'tizal, you will see why the book is important for Western scholars. And also if you read Al-Itqan in fi Ulum al-Quran, you see like how they approach the idea of first text before Mus'haf. Any questions, CD, from the audience? Can you give a mic to there? I'm sorry.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
With regard to diraya, I think if I understood correctly, it's a matter that entails ijtihad. So the scholar is making a judgment on the hadith, whether it's a grade and so on. So with regard to those scholars in contemporary times who engage in that form of ijtihad, in comparison to those of old who did that ijtihad already, what is the place of their judgment in that scheme?
So just to understand, because the question is not clear for me, I don't know if, is the question clear? Is the question clear, or I don't understand the question. Can you?
Meaning the contemporary judgment of the scholars are contemporary times.
Okay.
Those hadith scholars who are making judgments on
Right.
the grade of the hadith now.
All right.
How does that fit in with the judgments that were made before?
So the idea of tasheeh.
Yes.
Right. And what's the connection between this and the what you mentioned first, riwaya?
No, the previous judgments that were already made on the tasheeh of the ahadith. Is this, wouldn't we consider that done? So what is the role of the contemporary scholars in terms of adding to that?
That's a very big question, and this the question of our time. And I hope if we like in our lectures, like to speak about that, especially in the last lecture about Sheikh Nasruddin Albani and traditionalists. I have some, like from Salafi groups, they accuse traditionalists they are jubana, coward. They cannot give an opinion or ijtihad on hadith. And just like to explain this, why they accuse traditionalists as coward, because I think the idea of judgment is a very complicated process for to give. It's not an easy. It's just not about rijal. It's not about like to find rijal in tahzib al-tahzib or taqrib al-tahzib, and that's it. No, that's not the way of judgment on hadith. The way of judgment of hadith. So now, if I say what shart al-Bukhari and Muslim, and if we say al-Hakim said ala shart al-Shaykhain, what does that mean? And then everything we found, many things we find in Muṣṭalaḥ, not on shart al-Shaykhain, not on rijal. Sometimes we find on ala shart al-Shaykhain and no narrators from al-Bukhari and Muslim. What does that mean? So that makes for traditionalists is to make a judgment to any hadith is a complicated process. So for them to make a judgment, mostly they rely on early resources, late resources, or they go between Hasan li ghayrihi and Sahih li ghayrihi, but they don't give Sahih li dhatihi and Hasan li dhatihi based on mutaba'at. And this is what I found with Sheikh Nuruddin Attar. So sometimes he asked me based like just like a quiz in his house. So based on these like turuq, what you can do. I said this should be Hasan li ghayri. He said yes. So the idea of Hasan li ghayri and Sahih li ghayri is very smart way. Is to go from Sahih li dhati and Hasan li dhati. This is a very smart way by Ibn Hajar, and also another smart way by Ibn Hajar al-Haytami when he said رجاله رجال الصحيح, and he doesn't say هو صحيح. That's very smart. So when you say رجاله رجال الصحيح, so that's very real. Like go and find that, but could be رجال رجال صحيح and ضعيف, right? So then to give, and you see that's not in our modern times. That's Ibn Hajar al-Haythami. That's in that time, and he said رجال ورجال الصحيح and full stop. And then give others like to find this like. So the idea of ala shart al-Shaykhain, the idea of رجال ورجال الصحيح, and then the Sahih li ghayri and Hasan li ghayrihi, all of these, the place where like mutaakhirin and our modern time ulama present their opinions. They cannot say this Sahih. I didn't find that like Dr. Attar said that's Sahih or Da'if, but based on early opinions, yes. But if he doesn't have that, he cannot say that. But for others like Salafi, like just not to accuse anyone, like Sheikh Shu'aib al-Arnaout and Sheikh, so they edit a lot of big collections. And there is a group, like not just Sheikh Shu'aib al-Arnaout, there is an office, Sheikh Nasruddin Albani, an office. And they give all of these opinions based on what? Mostly from my, I see that as just like based on Rijal. Based on Rijal, yes, we can do that. Like after maybe like here short semester, we can do that here. We don't need like to go over complicated process after like reading some Rijal or without reading any Rijal based on like Google. We see that, okay, that matches. But no, for Muhaddith scholars in our modern time, the judgment based on the idea of nazm, because sanad is not scattered, is not just narrators. In the end, we have this sanad, but this sanad, the relationship between Ash-Sha'bi and this person is different from like just to abroad Ash-Sha'bi. So Sha'bi and this person, no, we have this, like, we need to see the relationship. And we talked here in our Sahih Bukhari and Shama'il. So sometimes some narrators accused by da'if and like someone Amir al-Mu'minin fil Hadith. And then we consider Amir al-Mu'minin fil Hadith is like stronger than da'if. But then other ulama say this da'if is better Amir al-Mu'minin fil Hadith in this case, in terms of his relationship with his sheikh. So the idea is very complicated. That's why traditionalists in our time, I understand the way why they were accused, and why others like Salafi engage in this and produce a lot. I hope this give an answer, and we will go back and to this point, inshallah, in the end, with maybe more details. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.